We are going to look at about 10 trades that were left in the comment section over the past week. A lot of these have to do with rookie picks, and a big thing that I want to discuss is the situation we currently have with JJ McCarthy. So previously, I thought there was a tier of 5 in Dynasty Superflex drafts, that tier of 5 being Caleb, Marvin, then May, Daniels, Neighbors. Afterwards, I thought there was a tier of 2 more players in Roman Bowers. And now that it looks more and more likely that JJ McCarthy can turn into a top 5 NFL draft pick, it does mess with these tiers. Instead of you sitting there at pick 7 thinking, oh, okay, it looks like I'm maybe going to come away with Bowers. If you're in a Superflex league, at pick 7 now, you could either see McCarthy being best player available and that's the direction you want to go in, or maybe McCarthy goes ahead of one of those top 6 guys that we thought, and instead, maybe you get like Rome falling to you. And then, of course, there's the crazy situation that maybe Rome goes to Los Angeles, maybe McCarthy finds himself in Minnesota, and then at 7, all of a sudden, you never expected it, but we are getting Malik Neighbors. So, I mean, the tiers are definitely changing here in late March. Us looking at this first trade, coming out from Dinky says, I have the 107 in Javonte. We were offered Jahmyr Gibbs. Should we take it? It's a super flex format. Now, I'm saying all this when it comes to the rookie tiers because I do want to make sure we are on the same page. When in doubt, keep the rookie pick. When in doubt, keep the flexibility. I mean, so much is going to change over the coming months. I want that pick that's going to at least maintain its value with the possibility of actually going higher. However, with that being said, if you were to make a trade, a phenomenal move here, pivoting to Jahmyr Gibbs, I would take Gibbs. You plug this in the flogfantasy.com trade calculator, and yeah, they have Gibbs as the winner as well. Because if you look at what Javonte Williams has proven so far in his NFL, he hasn't proven anything. I know it's sad to say. I know that, I mean, he maybe has some upside, but the reality of the situation, if you're looking at Javonte Williams, is this is an unproven running back that's coming to the end of his rookie deal that could literally be nothing, zip, nada. He could be a 0 in Dynasty Fantasy Football next offseason. And if you're looking at a player with that prototype, I don't necessarily think that he should be a big piece when you're considering Jahmyr Gibbs, the top 3 running back in Dynasty, that's proven he can be an elite RB1, that has the team investment, that's incredibly young as well. So, I mean, the fact that you could potentially move the 107 in a piece that may be absolutely nothing 12 months from now to go get Jahmyr Gibbs, a top 3 running back in Dynasty. Personally, it is something that I would do, and I think the Gibbs side here is a massive winner. You can look at the trade calculator that you have here on flogfantasy.com as well, and you'll see that there are a bunch of other trades which essentially say, yeah, other people are trading Javonte and a first for Gibbs. If it was like a top 5 pick, I think it'd be a much tougher conversation. But here at 7, there's no way you're getting Daniels. There's no way you're getting May. I think we would just take Gibbs. Now, going over to our next question, says, would you sell high on Hollywood to buy low on JSN? So y'all know early in the offseason, we were saying when you still could sell Jackson Smith-Njigba, go get a pick that you can turn into like Rome. Back then, you could get a top 6 rookie pick in a Superflex league. Now it's going to be a lot harder. So I've been on the side of saying it's not as easy to say, oh, go buy low on JSN, go buy low on JSN, go buy low on JSN, because I'm going back to the historical data that we looked at in the videos early this week, buying low on a rookie wide receiver that didn't have a great year 1 typically isn't going to be a winning strategy. However, with that being said, we're not trading a player like Rome for him. We're trading another wide receiver that has been a disappointing option for years and years and years. Even if he finds himself in a good situation this year, he's on a 1-year deal with the Kansas City Chiefs. So 100%, I would trade Hollywood Brown and go get JSN. Not going to think about this twice. If you look at this on the trade calculator on flogfantasy.com, it has JSN winning by a landslide. If you go over and look at the trade finder on flogfantasy.com, one deal that I want to point out that I think is going to be a little more realistic if you are in a league trying to make a trade like this is someone was able to trade away Hollywood Brown, Jalen Hyatt, and Tank Bigsby to go get JSN. I would never tell someone, hey, go offer Hollywood straight up for JSN, because I think 9 times out of 10, that's just going to get rejected. But here, if you can take a bunch of those secondary, like crappy pieces, like Hyatt, like Bigsby, throw them in with the Hollywood Brown side and make it seem like you're giving up more than you actually are, because those players could be legitimate zeros. I think it makes a lot of sense to try to pivot to JSN because he at least has some upside. Now, our next deal is one that I had no idea what side I was going to go with before we plugged it into the trade calculator, and the calculator said, yep, fair deal, up to you. This is a one quarterback format. I want to stress a one QB league where someone trades away Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 107 for the 101 and Jonathan Taylor. Now, the 101 in a one quarterback format is almost regardless going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't necessarily think anybody's going to argue against that. And if you look at Marvin versus Amon-Ra St. Brown, based off what we've seen with St. Brown early on in his career, we've already seen him to be a proven elite level talent at the NFL level. Plus, he's incredibly young. I would rather have St. Brown, but I pretty much have them ranked back-to-back on flockfantasy.com. So I think you're getting a downgrade from St. Brown to Marvin, but it's not a massive, massive downgrade. Going from the 107 to Jonathan Taylor, the 107 in a one quarterback format. Think about it. You're going to have we're not even going there. We're going to have Marvin, Neighbors, Rome, Bowers, Brian Thomas, all off the board. 107, you're going to be looking at like Adonai, Xavier Worthy, Troy Franklin, maybe Keon Coleman, depending on landing spot, or then maybe you pivot over to like the running backs like Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson. I don't know, but the point is you're going to be outside of the tier that you have for sure fire studs, right? So, I mean, if we're looking at that versus Jonathan Taylor, give me Jonathan Taylor by a pretty wide margin. You can't really break it down and saying, okay, well, I'd rather have this side if I'm rebuilding, this side if I'm contending, because if you're contending, you want JT, but if you're contending, you also want Amon-Ra St. Brown. So it's a very interesting trade. I don't necessarily know what side I'd want. The trade calculator says it's a fair deal as well. If you look at the trade finder on flockfantasy.com, you'll see that you have Jonathan Taylor and George Pickens getting traded for James Cook and Amon-Ra St. Brown. The next deal, you have Cole Kmet, Jonathan Taylor, and a couple first-round picks for Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jordan Love in the second. I don't necessarily think that one's as useful to look at as the first one. I don't know. I mean, I would way rather have St. Brown over Taylor. But let's go over to our next question. Coming out from Phil, we're going to operate under the assumption that this is a super flex league here. Traded away the 102 for the 106, the 301, and a 2026 first. Now, personally, I don't really care about the 301 in this deal. It's like, would you trade back from the 102 to the 106 to pick up an additional extra first round pick? So this is like, would you trade away Marvin for Rome and a first? I think it's a very fair deal. I think it probably comes down to the situation that you're in. If you're going to be a contending team over the next few years, I'd probably rather just keep the 102. I'd rather keep the stud player and get the production in right now. However, if you were telling me, well, Mason, I'm not going to contend this year, I'm a rebuilding team almost regardless, then I think it could make a lot of sense for you to go ahead and for you to say, okay, well, let's just, in that case, I don't know, pick up the extra first round pick while still having access to a rookie with a lot of upside. So I think it's a fair deal. And that's exactly what the trade calculator says as well. Now, our next trade on the trade calculator also says it's a fair trade. Y'all asked a lot of good trade questions. And of course, if y'all ever have a dynasty trade and you want to put it into the trade finder or the trade calculator, the trade finder on flockfantasy.com is going to be free for y'all. The trade calculator is behind a paywall, but if you want to get access to that or all my Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings, all the rankings of all your favorite creators, plus all the Dynasty Rookie Draft guides you could possibly want, plus the premium content from all your favorite creators, if you use code FLOCK, you're going to get 30% off any sub, and yours truly will break down your Dynasty Fantasy Football team with the podcast. But looking at this next deal, this is someone who has picks 1 through 7 in an 8-team super flex, 6 flex. So you would assume 8-team league, it's going to be an extremely shallow format. No, if you have 6 flex spots, I mean, it is balanced out a bit. I traded away the 103 for Drake London and Aaron Jones. Was this a bad trade? A couple different things I want to talk about here. I have seen time and time again, people decide, oh, okay, I have an absurd amount of picks, and that means what I should do is I should start trading away these picks at a discount to my league mates. Hell no. For the love of God, do not do that. If you have all the picks in your draft, that's great. Take the rookies. If you don't want to take the rookies, if we are selling a pick, wait until the actual rookie draft, wait until the NFL draft happens. And then if anybody in your league wants to go get a rookie, if anybody in your league wants to get in the rookie draft, which they will, all of a sudden they have one person to go to with those picks. And instead of selling it at a discount because you have all of them, you could charge a premium. So I do want to reiterate, because I see it a lot, people going through that have all the picks thinking that for whatever reason, they need to sell one or two of them at a discount. Nope, we do not need to do that. So if this was a regular 12-team Superflex Start 10 league, I would say give me the 103, and it's not even that close. But there's a big but on this. It's a very weird league. It's an 8-team Superflex 6-flex league. So in a 12-team Superflex league, everybody on average is going to have only 2 to 3 starting QBs. So there will always be a trade market for those quarterbacks. That's what makes them valuable in a Superflex format. However, we go over to an 8-team Superflex league. Everybody on average is going to have 4 starting QBs. So it's actually a little bit closer to a 1 quarterback format than it is a true Superflex, especially if you're going to be increasing the size of the starting lineups where you have 6 flex spots. It does make it where you are more willing to treat this as a 1 quarterback league than you would a regular 12-team Superflex format. So with that in mind, it's a little bit of a different story. Because if this is a 12-team Superflex league, 103 versus Drake London, even with London getting great quarterback play coming in, give me the 103. I'm not really going to think twice. However, if you're treating it a little more as if it's a 1 quarterback format where the 103 is instead like Rome, and you're telling me we're trading away Rome for London and Aaron Jones, I would still probably rather have Rome over London, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. I know 99% of y'all disagree with us. Pull up the flogfantasy.com community rankings, and you'll see that London, at the time of this recording, is wide receiver 8. I mean, people are all freaking in on London. I'd probably rather have Rome. I'd probably rather pivot to another wide receiver that will be a top 10 pick that hasn't been bad through the first 2 years of his career, even if it was obviously on quarterback play, not necessarily himself, but still. 1 quarterback format, which this essentially is, I think you can make the trade. I just thought there was a lot to talk about with that. Our next deal, we talked about Bryce Young being a potential buy low candidate if you could trade like the 111 for him. Here, someone sold Bryce Young for the 107 and a third. 100%, you'd rather have the 107, right? 107, maybe you're going to like McCarthy. You'd rather hit the reset button if McCarthy goes inside the top 5 NFL draft picks. Just get someone else that hasn't flamed out year one. I like Young as an intriguing buy low candidate, but like I said, that's if you can get him with like the 111. Now, our next deal was interesting because we had a bunch of people under this comment saying, oh, massive W, you robbed the man. This is a trade where we sent Will Levis in the 106 for the 108 and 109. So a couple different things with this. One, clearly I would rather have the 106 over the 108. 2, I would rather have the 109 over Will Levis. So we are trading the best asset and the worst asset to get 2 middle assets, which is completely fine depending on where the value lies, right? And depending on really what you think of Will Levis, because I want to say that that player at 6 will fundamentally be a much better option than whatever you're going to be looking at 8. But I mean, nonetheless, if you're looking at this regardless, a lot of it comes down to the gap that you perceive to be between Will Levis and pick 9. If you think that Levis is so much worse than whoever's going to be at the 9th pick, then by all means, go ahead. You can make this deal. But I mean, I don't know if it was... I think it's a fair trade. The calculator has it as a fair trade as well, but I was just interested to see everybody in the comment section screaming that it was great to sell off the 106 and Levis to get those 2 picks. Our next deal, another 2-for-1 deal. It's going to be a 1 quarterback format. Someone trades away Waddle in the 103 for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Here, I think a lot of this comes down to the amount of starting lineup spots that you have. If this is like a 10-team league where you start 8, 9 guys, then give me Amon-Ra St. Brown relatively easily. If this is a 12-team 1 quarterback format where we're starting 10 guys, then honestly, especially keep in mind 1 quarterback league start 10 is a little bit deeper than a Superflex start 10. I may rather have Waddle in the 103 there just so we get the extra starter. You pull this up in the trade calculator. I didn't know what league settings to put in it, so it did prefer the Waddle and 103 side just slightly, but I think you can adjust it with your own league settings, figure out if it makes sense for you. If you're looking at the trade finder, you have a deal where someone sends away Waddle and Travis Etienne for Amon-Ra St. Brown, which is a cheaper price point than Waddle in the 103. I'd say most people would rather have the 103 over Etienne at this point. Another trade, I don't even want to look at the Chase trade just because there's so many pieces in it. I think the best deal is going to be the Waddle and Etienne for St. Brown to get a gauge of what a fair price point is. Now, going over to our next trade, this is the 104 and Zamir, sending him away to get the 102. It's a 10-team Superflex start 11. 100%, just give me the 102. I mean, with Zamir White, I understand that on paper he looks like the starting running back for the Raiders this season. Yes, he had one pretty damn a game that was way better than what I ever thought he could do last year. But ultimately, this is a running back that's not really going to catch the ball, that doesn't really have any team investment, that's not in a good offense. I'm completely fine selling at this price. And this last one, I think a lot of people are going to like this as well. I think it's actually a pretty interesting trade, just seeing the thought process behind it. It's Cousins, the 109, and a third for Anthony Richardson. So Anthony Richardson right now valued as that elite level asset. A lot of people are valuing him as a late round 1, early round 2 starter pick. Cousins just gets $100 million guaranteed. So Cousins is obviously a short-term piece that you'd never want on a rebuilding roster. But at the same time, you still have a few years coming from Kirk Cousins. The 109, you are picking up the additional future value and some flexibility. I want to be 100% honest. I think Anthony Richardson is the winning side here. The trade calculator agrees Anthony Richardson is the winning side. You look at the trade finder. I mean, people typically have to pay a lot more if they are moving off of Kirk Cousins for Anthony Richardson. The interesting question is, what rookie pick would make it where the Kirk Cousins side wins this? 109, I don't think so, because 109 is going to be like the Adonai, Xavier, worthy range. I don't really think that moves the needle. Instead, if this is the 105, where you're in play for May, Neighbors, maybe Daniels. I mean, if it's 104, 103, I think at that point, 103, 104, it probably makes sense to pivot off of Anthony Richardson, get some locked and loaded production into this next season, and at the same time, still have long-term upside with the 103, 104, and kind of diversify your risk just a bit, getting out of one asset for two. But as it stands, 109, definitely give me Anthony Richardson. And like I said, the trade calculator on flockfantasy.com agrees. And if y'all ever wanted to play around with the trade calculator on the site, you can put in your exact league settings with it. I think it's by far and away the best trade calculator that you can possibly find, because we put so much work in to figure out how to use those league settings to make it the most accurate it can be. But anyway, you can find that link in the live chat in the description comment section. Code FLOCK would get you 30% off any sub. Plus, you will also get set up with my Dynasty rankings, the Dynasty rankings of all your favorite creators, and code FLOCK. Yours truly will break down your Dynasty team in a podcast. But I think that's all I got for you. Really appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day, and really hope we get to see you out with the video tomorrow.